What's something small you notice that shows someone has been through a lot? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. Their inability to ask for help and tackling everything on their own. They're used to no one else being there and still needing to get crap done. I recently got into a relationship after being single for 15 years and swearing that I didn't have the emotional bandwidth, blah blah. I was wrong. Anyway, I had a trip planned, and he said he'd take me to the airport, and I declined. I can get there myself, thank you very much. No need for me to be a pain in the ass. You don't need to do this for me. He asked me to explore why I felt like I was a pain in the ass. Why do I not want him to do this for me when it's something he wants to do, so he can see me before I leave? I am so used to being self-reliant that I can't fathom existing in any other way. I feel like a burden to others. But I'm learning that isn't true. Story 2. You get between half and 1.5 acts of assistance before trusted individuals turn on you and are abusive because you're a burden, in my experience. If you need one full piece of assistance, or more than that one, well, you're risking losing trust with someone you need. They tried to help and the help petered out. That's on me. I shouldn't have needed help in the first place, and I don't dare to go back to them to finish what they started or give more aid. Story 3. Hypervigilance. I've been told by psychiatrists that I am hypervigilant, but when I get focused on something and I forget to be vigilant, somebody coming close to me if I didn't hear them approach will cause me to scream bloody and jump 2 feet in the air, and then it takes forever for my heart to stop pounding. I wonder if people see me struggling with this and realize that it's from trauma, or if they just think it's some weird thing about me. Most people would probably chalk it up to something simple, like maybe they came off a certain way, or maybe it's just your personality people that don't perceive everything they see as the norm and put a satisfying explanation with everything tend to dig deeper and explore more into things like human behavior. Most people find this boring, but I like to study my environment constantly, and especially the people in it. If I saw this, I would probably think it was from some kind of anxiety. Then I would wonder what gave you that anxiety, but that's just me. I look at the small things. Story 4. There are a lot of negative responses here, which is completely understandable. But I do want to add a positive sign of someone who's seen some things. They can be incredibly empathetic and patient, willing to listen with an open mind and emit a warmth from them that seems to say, I feel your pain and my heart is with you. Coming out of a painful part of life can really help a person understand why other people are the way they are, because they know what pain does to them. Story 5. Trauma can be transformative. Sometimes it can open a person up in ways they weren't before. I just read Man's Search for Meaning a few months ago and really appreciated getting the author's perspective. If you didn't know, it's about the camps in the Holocaust he survived. He was a captive Jewish doctor with knowledge of psychology, and it's incredibly fascinating and moving. He talks near the end about how many people came out of the camps more compassionate, more empathetic, more appreciative of life, and kinder. Others came out bitter, mean, and angry. The people that stay bitter don't stop suffering. I really admire people that go through trauma and come out better people. Maybe that's part of what life is about. Story 6. Disproportionate reactions. Their reactions to most things are normal or even low-key, but occasionally they have a huge response to something minor. Key sign of trauma. The book The Body Keeps Score speaks to this. Trauma changes the brain. It becomes more reactive after being exposed to repeated trauma. Someone dropped something today and it startled the F out of me, more so than the others. They laughed at my response, but if they understood why, they wouldn't have been laughing. And I do a lot to educate myself on trauma because I want to understand what is happening to me, and I want to use that knowledge to help others. The problem with trauma is many of us don't recognize that we are suffering from it. A lot of personality traits are actually trauma responses. Story 7. I work with parents, children who have endured, and some regularly still enduring trauma. One thing I notice is in times of serious immediate stress, like an active shooter nearby is a real example, they go into a totally calm, rational state. Their brains seem to be trained to be more comfortable in chaos. They also seem to create chaos, often drama, when things start going too smoothly. A lot of people see this as self-sabotage, but if you're used to living in chaos, calm can feel really unfamiliar and frankly scary. Sometimes you've accomplished everything you needed to, and finally got out of a bad situation, and there's just nothing left to fight against. And you don't know what you're supposed to do because being comfortable is so alien that it feels uncomfortable. Story 8. Apologize for things constantly, particularly if they didn't do anything wrong. I did this unaware and gently got called out today. I was asking to change an appointment time, over-explained while apologizing every other word, and ended the request with, "But if not." That's totally okay and I understand. The receptionist was so sweet and gently said, "I learned in couples therapy that people pleasers diminish their wants and apologize in advance when they've done nothing wrong. I promise you that it's not rude to ask me for what you want or need, and you don't have to apologize for asking me for what you want or need." I now love them, and to stop myself from immediately apologizing. Story 9. One small thing I notice is how people handle their personal space. It might sound odd, but someone who's been through a lot often has a certain way of arranging their things or how they react to being around others. For instance, a slightly guarded or meticulous approach to organizing personal items, or a tendency to stay quietly in the background can be subtle hints. It's like these small details are part of their coping mechanism or a reflection of their experiences. It's a gentle reminder that we all carry our stories with us in ways that aren't always immediately obvious. Story 10. If you twist the door handle before closing it to avoid the latch making a sound. If you're like me and 6'3" walking around like a ninja, do you cut the tops of the chip bags off so they don't make a crinkle noise when you reach in? Your parents were likely narcissists, and you did your best to go unnoticed, and those habits continue in life. I was actually trying to explain this the other day. I would get in so much trouble for making noise. I cringe anytime I hear my husband walking around. It's something I really need to work on because I have a 3-year-old, and I sometimes find myself trying to make her quiet down. It's just my inner voice trying to protect her, even though she's not in that situation. Narcissists suck. Story 11. My husband is one of these people. Like, how is he okay after the childhood and young adult life that he had? We had a really good friend also like this, who passed away on New Year's unexpectedly from internal bleeding. It was super shocking and traumatic, and during the period after, I met all of her family. Let me just say, I do not understand how she had the capacity to love and be good to others, after the unbelievable evil she endured as a child. Some of her abusers were at her life celebration funeral, and it was really hard to handle seeing their performative crocodile tears without absolutely losing it. I think that epic amount of love and empathy she showed us was something my husband picked up on very quickly, and before we learned anything about her past. I didn't understand until recently that this loving warmth they both have is a response to their childhoods. Just crazy they could respond to such evil with love. I really don't know if I'd be able to do the same if I lived their lives. Either way, I'm lucky to have my husband, and we both were lucky to have had our friend for the time we did. We miss her tons. Story 12. Something scary or maddening happens, and they just look bored or resigned. No biggie, seen worse. I had a really scary thing happen that brought this out in a way I really only unraveled after the fact. Someone tweaking out on drugs attempted to break into my apartment while me and my 2 roommates were all home. He was screaming through the door that he was going to my roommates, who he could see through the window. Both of them ran to my room and started crying, which is completely normal. It was very scary. I recall just heaving a sigh, telling them to call, grabbing a knife and sneaking next to the door. I was fully prepared to fatally disable the guy if he made it inside. All I knew in that moment was that this man was threatening our lives, and I would kill him if I had to. I was completely focused on it, zero emotion, thinking about how to attack his weak spots if he made it inside, how to incapacitate him the fastest. Crouched there silently until the cops came. Later on, I told my therapist I felt like a sleeper agent that had been activated. As soon as the police dealt with it and left, I just crumpled and started sobbing. It was such an odd sensation, and when I was unraveling it later, I kind of realized how deep both my trauma and my self-preservation run. I felt the weight of the conditioning just snapping on and prepping me to deal with the situation. On the one hand, it was scary and upsetting, but on the other, it made me understand that a lot of my frustrating reactions to things are defense mechanisms I just don't always understand. After so many years of depression, it also felt good to realize I actually do have a strong desire to stay alive. I'm sad for the child who was hurt, but I'm proud of the parts of myself that learned to survive. Story 13. Nothing surprises them anymore. This is a big one. Not many people have been in that deep, dark place. But if you have, it almost your soul. You couldn't even describe it to someone who hasn't experienced it. If you're in that state, or you've managed to get out, most things in life seem pretty trivial. A stranger was being rude, someone cut you off in traffic, just got a promotion at work. It all seems completely useless compared to what you're going through or what you've been through. The main benefit of having been put through the ringer is openness. If you've seen worst, you're ready for it at every turn. If you've seen heaven, you know it and appreciate it when you see it. Chances are you've met both. Edit, going a bit deeper, depression and trauma allow us to experience the abyss, the deepest deep that we could ever feel, but also the highest highs. If navigated properly or at all, the most negative states carry the most beneficial lessons. The cool part of basking in the deep is that it also opens us up to the opposite, like I said, something some could call heaven. A paradise realm, golden world. Just the thought of it could evoke an equal and opposite reaction, a thank, a gratitude. Story 14. They walk silently and unintentionally scare other people when they finally see them. This happened the other day at the grocery store. I was shopping and a worker suddenly appeared beside me, never heard them coming, and I jumped. He muttered sorry and kept walking, as if he's used to this interaction. I felt so bad because I do the same thing, from years of childhood trauma. I hope he's doing okay otherwise. Walking without making noise is a learned behavior, usually in response to prolonged childhood trauma. Whether it be as an attempt to hide from threats in the house, or to avoid getting reprimanded by a parent who can't stand the noise of their own children, or many other reasons. In many cases, this habit carries into adulthood, even long after the original threat is gone. This has been true in my case. Story 15. Needing reassurance at every step of something. My parents would yell at me for doing a thing wrong but refuse to explain what I had messed up. "You know what you did. Now start over and do it right this time," was common to hear in our house. If I'm learning a new skill or doing something for a person I trust, I'll ask their feedback and reassurance every few steps. Because I can trust them to give me a real answer, and to be polite and not yell if I mess up. It stresses people out, and I've only recently found the pattern. I can explain now that I ask, because I trust them to give good feedback. Before, I would start apologizing immediately and become withdrawn, which made the person worry about me, and I get really uncomfortable if people are worrying about me. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below.